What's going on, guys, and welcome back to another video. Today I'm going to be making a tier list for tanks in SOD or Season of Discovery. Season of Discovery is coming out within the next couple of weeks, and we want to know where these tanks stand. So without further ado, let's dive in. Okay, so first up on our list here, we have Druid, right? So I have our WoW head talent calculator with the glyphs up here on the left, and then I have our tier list maker on the right. So what we're going to do is we're going to put together a level 25 tanking build using the best runes that we think are going to work, and then we're going to rank it in the tier list. So for Druid, we're going to go into Feral Combat, obviously. We have Ferocity, which will lower basically the cost of our Maul or Swipe for tanking by 5 Rage. Or Feral Aggression, which will make our Demoralizing Roar a lot stronger. And I think this is going to be better for holding AoE threat. And because, you know what? Lowering the cost of Maul or Swipe by 5 Rage in a raid setting, I don't think it's that important. You're never going to be rage starved. You're going to be getting wailed on by a bunch of mobs. So we're going to put our first 5 points in Feral Aggression. And then we're going to take... I would say we take 2 points in Brutal Impact and then 3 points into Thick Hide to increase our armor contribution from items. We're going to grab Feral Charge for sure. And then we have Sharpened Claws, increases your critical strike chance while in Bear, Dire Bear, or Cat form. We can get this up to 6%. And I think that is the move for us. So we're going to do 3 points there. Right now we have 2 points left to spend. And Feral Swiftness isn't really going to benefit us at all for tanking. Feral Instinct, we do want to have some points in there. So I say we actually, let's not put 3 points in Sharpened Claws. Let's put 1, 2, 3, maybe 4 into Feral Instinct. And then Predatory Strikes is good later on. But at level 25, 50% of our level is like, you know, 12.5 attack power that we'd be gaining, so that's not really worth it. So I honestly think we just do 5 points in Feral Instinct, and that would make us level 25. So this would be my build for tanking at level 25 on a Druid. And then let's take a look at the runes. So we're going to start with the chest runes. We have Fury of Storm Rage, which is not a tanking one. We have Survival of the Fittest. Reduces the chance you'll be critically hit by melee attacks by 6% and reduces all damage taken by 10%. Damage taken reduced by an additional 10% while in Bear or Dire Bear form, so 20% reduced damage. So obviously Survival of the Fittest is the rune we take for our chest. For our hands, we could go with 2 here. We have Lacerate or we have Mangle. So Lacerate the enemy target, making them bleed. And this is going to stack up to 5 times. So this is a 5-stack bleed. And then we have Mangle the target for 160 normal damage and cause the target to take 30% additional damage from bleed effects, and Shred for 1 minute. And Mangle, this ability benefits from and triggers all effects associated with Claw and Maul. So I would argue here that Mangle is probably better on threat than Lacerate. So I'm going to go with Mangle, but you could probably swap those 2 out and see which one is better once we get in. And then for legs, we're obviously going to be going with Skull Bash, because Savage Roar is useless to us. We're not going to be in cat form. Life Bloom's useless. Star Surge is useless. So we have Skull Bash, which will give us another charge and an interrupt. So we're going to take Skull Bash. So this would be our Druid tanking ability at level 25. And when you take a look at these abilities, right, Survival of the Fittest reduces the chance you'll be critically hit by 6% and reduces all damage taken by 10%, 20% if you're in bear form. That is a massive rune, so that's pretty huge. Mangle is going to be really good for holding threat. You're also going to bump up the damage on that target from bleed effects, like from warriors and things like that, so that's going to help out a lot. And then having an interrupt and a secondary charge is just pretty massive in itself. So for me, I'm going to put Druids up in S tier at level 25. So that's where Druids are going to sit. So let's move on to the next one. We're going to talk about Paladins next. Okay, so for a level 25 Paladin, obviously we are going to put 5 points in Redoubt to increase our chance to block by 30%. We are going to want 3 points into Toughness, maybe 2, and I would say we do Precision 3 points for that chance to hit. Paladins already have pretty high armor, and we're going to have Devo Aura, and having that 3% chance to hit is pretty massive. So right now this requires level 19, so we have a few more points to spend here. We're going to obviously want to get shield specialization, increase the amount that we can absorb with a shield. So we're going to cap that out. And then Righteous Fury, we want to increase our threat generation by a bit here. We're going to put 2 points there, and then we're going to put a point in Blessing of Kings. So this would be my spec for a level 25 Prot Paladin tank. And for our chest rune, what we're going to do here is pick up Aegis. Increases the block value by 30%, and damaging melee and range attacks against you have a 10% chance to increase your chance to block by 30%. It lasts 10 seconds or 5 blocks, so we want to pick up Aegis. And then for our hand rune, we want to pick up Hand of Reckoning. This is going to be our taunt. Taunts the target to attack you, but has no effect if the target is already attacking you. While you know this ability, the threat bonus from Righteous Fury is increased by 80%, and Righteous Fury causes you to gain mana when healed by others. So this is going to help our mana issues, and it's going to give us our taunt. So we're going to pick up Hand of Reckoning. And what I'm thinking about now is that these points might be kind of useless in Righteous Fury with using the Hand of Reckoning rune. It's already getting an 80% increase, so putting points here is kind of useless. So in my opinion, actually, we would take these points out and throw those into either Anticipation for defense skill, or I'm going to put them into Toughness to make us a little bit more tanky, because I didn't realize that that actually makes your Righteous Fury that much stronger. That's actually a crazy amount. So let's move on to the leg rune. We have Avenger's Shield, we have DSAC, Exorcist, Inspiration Exemplar, and Rebuke. So 1, 2, and 3, Exorcist, this one, and Rebuke, we're not going to use those for tanking. So let's take a look at Divine Sacrifice. 30% of all damage taken by party members is redirected towards the Paladin. Any damage which reduces the Paladin below 20% health will break the effect and grant the Paladin 10% increased damage and healing over 10 seconds. That could definitely be a useful talent. Or we have Avenger's Shield, hurl a holy shield at the enemy, dealing 165 to 197 holy damage, dazing them, and then jumping to additional nearby targets. I mean, it really depends on how hard the raid actually is, but you could kind of, you know, use these interchangeably, swap them out as you need them. But as a baseline talent, especially, you know, if you're tanking even pre-raid, you know, doing dead mines, things like that, I would go with Avenger's Shield. So this would be my level 25 Prot Paladin build. And Paladins, I'm going to put them up in S tier as well. Paladins were already decent tanks. They just didn't have a taunt, and they had a little bit of mana issues back in vanilla, and that seems to be fixed with these glyphs. So let's move on to the Warrior. So, Warrior tanking, level 25. Remember, guys, this tier list is for level 25 tanking. So for Warrior, our first thing we're going to do is put 5 points in Shield Specialization, which increases our chance to block. It's going to be 5% with a 100% chance to generate Rage, and every time we do block. And then our next few points we're going to put into Toughness to make us even tankier. We're going to put the next 3 points into Improved Shield Block. Allows our Shield Block ability to block an additional attack and increase its duration by 0.5 seconds. So we're going to put... let's see what happens if we put 3 points there. And now we have 3 points left to spend, right? So I think here we go with Defiance to increase our threat generation. I mean, looking at these talents, it's kind of... yeah, we're going to have to go with Defiance. And... can't take any points out of there. So yeah, this would be level 25 build. Unfortunately, we have only a 12% threat generation from our attacks, as opposed to the Paladins, like 90% with Righteous Fury and the Druid. But it does work. It does work. This will work. So this would be our level 25 talent tree. Yeah, this would be our level 25 talent tree. And then let's take a look at our runes. So for chest runes, we would most likely go with Warbringer. Nothing really crazy here for tanking. Raging Blow, we don't want to be in rage that often and take more damage. Flagellation, gain a 25% bonus to physical damage for 12 seconds after activating Blood Rage or Berserker Rage. Blood Frenzy, each time you deal bleed damage, you gain 3 rage. I mean, if you were being rage starved, I guess this would be a decent option, but the only one here that kind of makes any sense to me would be Warbringer. And let's move on to the hands. So for hands, Obviously here, we're going to go with Devastate while you're in defensive stance and have a shield equipped. Sunder Armor also deals 100% weapon damage, increased by 10 per application of Sunder Armor already on the target. So Devastate is just amazing for tanking. We know that. And for legs, we are most likely going to go with Furious Thunder so that we can Thunderclap in defensive stance. And it's even a stronger Thunderclap on its own there. So this would be our build for a level 25 Prot Warrior tanking. And I would put warriors in A tier, not because they're bad, but simply because they just don't seem to have gotten, you know, much more than they already had. I mean, they get Devastate, they get Thunderclap in D stance, which is great. But I do think Paladins and Druids are going to have an easier time holding Threat early on at the level 25 bracket. This could obviously change in the next phase. We'll make a video for each phase, of course. But yeah, so this would be our level 25 Prot Warrior build. Warriors would be in the A tier, in my opinion. I know. Let me know down in the comments below if you guys think I missed anything or if you want any, you know, give any suggestions. And so, yeah, let's move on to Warlock. Okay, so here's where it's going to get kind of interesting, right? So Warlocks weren't tanks before. They can now be tanks. And they said themselves, the developers, that, you know, Warlocks, Rogues, and Shamans would be competitive tanks, right? So let's go down into our builds here and figure out, you know, kind of how this is going to play out. So I'm assuming that since we're going to be in Metamorphosis form and we're going to be spamming Searing Pain and our Shadow Bolt Cleave, we're going to obviously be going down into Demonology because it's a kind of our tanky spec. So let's put 5 points into Demonic Embrace first, right? So that's going to give us 15% more stamina, which is humongous. And let's just look around here and see. We're not going to really be using any Affliction spells, so that's kind of a waste. Destruction could be pretty cool. I mean, because I'm pretty sure the way Metamorphosis works, I mean, once we put the runes on, we may, you know, think about this a little bit differently. But maybe Destruction is the way to go, right? So let's say we put 5 points into Demonic Embrace, and then we come over to Destruction, right? And we take 5 points. I mean, because none of this is really going to be useful to us for tanking. Like at all. At level 25 at least, none of this is useful. Yeah, so let's leave those there for now. We'll come back. We're going to put 5 points in Cataclysm to make sure that we don't have to life tap while tanking. And maybe Aftermath to give us our days. Nah, that's kind of useless. I'm not really sure how this is going to work. I mean, I know that your Shadow Cleave that you get from Metamorphosis changes, you know, triggers anything that would affect Shadow Bolt will affect your Shadow Cleave, which is, I'm assuming, is going to be the main ability you're spamming when trying to tank, right? So reduce the cast time of your Shadow Bolt, and I'm assuming that Shadow Cleave doesn't have a cast time. We don't know that for sure yet, but it doesn't. So maybe improved Shadow Bolt is the way to go, because if your Shadow Cleave can put improved Shadow Bolt on a target, meaning they take more damage, that would be useful for tanking for sure. We have 1 point left to spend, and it's not looking too good. I'm not really sure how this is going to work when it comes to talents, but let's just say, okay, so let's say this is the spec. This would be the spec that benefits tanking the most. I'm not saying this is the optimal spec, but in my opinion, this is kind of where we'd want to be. Oh, here we go. Okay, so we want to take these points out, right? We're going to be super tanky with Metamorphosis. Okay, this makes sense to me now. Right, so we're going to put some points into Devastation. And then... still doesn't make 100% sense to me. But... nah, we want that stamina. We need that stamina for sure. That's huge. 15% stamina is big. Okay, so we have 24 points. We have 1 point left to use, and I'm assuming, I guess here we're going to use it. We're going to drop it into Shadowburn, just for that extra kind of execute ability. But this is going to be something we have to play around with more when we feel out how this actually plays out. But so that would be my, if I was going in blind today, tanking on a Warlock, this would be, you know, my my tanking build. Okay, so let's go over some runes. Chest runes, we have Demonic Tactics, increases the melee and spell critical strike chance of you and your pet by 10%. Lake of Fire, we would not use. Master Channeler, your drain life is no longer channeled. Lasts 15 seconds with a 15-second cooldown. Costs 100% more mana and heals you for 50% more each time it deals damage. That's pretty huge. Increases the amount drained by drain life and drain soul. So Master Channeler or Demonic Tactics, I think depends how squishy we feel as tanks. If you're feeling real squishy and you want to kind of keep drain life up as a dot on your target to heal you, you would go with Master Channeler. But for the sake of this video, let's take Demonic Tactics because that's kind of the more base one. Let's take a look at the hands. We have, obviously, we got to take Metamorphosis. So Shadow Bolt becomes a Shadow Cleave, Shadow melee attack that hits up to 3 nearby enemies but has a 6-second cooldown. We get Demonic Charge, and we get our Taunt, so this is a no-brainer. We absolutely need to take Metamorphosis. And for anyone who doesn't know, this is going to be treated as like a Druid Bear form now. It's not going to be a cooldown ability anymore, so that's pretty cool. And let's move over to the legs. So we have Demonic Grace, Surge with Fell Energy, increasing your pet and your own dodge chance by 30% and your chance to critically strike with all attacks by 305. This Demonic Pact, no. Everlasting Affliction, no. Incinerate, no. So Demonic Grace would be a massive tanking ability. So we're going to immediately get 30% dodge chance when using Demonic Grace and increase our crit by 305, which is huge because that's going to play, like I said earlier, into that improved Shadow Bolt because down here you can see that Shadow Bolt becomes a Shadow Cleave, a Shadow melee attack that hits up to 3 nearby enemies but has a 6-second cooldown. So this should theoretically benefit from that. Not sure if it will, but either way, Demonic Grace is the best talent in this area. And I would rank Warlocks in the A tier. And I would rank Warlocks A tier. So moving on to Rogues. Okay, so for Rogue tanking, what we're going to be doing here is going into combat. And I say this because we are going to be tanking lightning reflexes 100% because tanking on Rogue and Warlock seems to be all about like dodge chance. So having that extra 5% dodge chance is going to be massive. And we're obviously going to take deflection here. And probably we have 6 points left to spend, right? So I'm thinking the best way to do this is to put 5 points into precision and then put a point into riposte, simply because now we're getting 5% dodge, 5% parry, 5% hit. You're all around stronger. You need to be hitting because you do miss a lot on a rogue without precision early on, and this is just perfect for a nice disarm. Because we're going to be parrying a lot as well. So this would be my build for a level 25 tanking rogue. And let's go down to our chest. We have Deadly Brew, Quick Draw, Slaughter from the Shadows, Just a Flesh Rune. Just a Flesh Rune is exactly what we're going to need here. You take 20% reduced physical damage while Blade Dance is active. Additionally, you have a 6% reduced chance to be critically hit by melee attacks, and the threat generated by all your actions is massively increased, and your feint becomes Tease, which is a taunt. So we're taking Just a Flesh Wound here. And for our hands, let's take a look here. We have Main Gouge, which is an instantly strike with your offhand for normal offhand weapon damage and increase your chance to parry by 10%. See, that's why we put the points in parry earlier. Main Gouge benefits from all talents and effects that trigger or modify Sinister Strike. Just doing a quick glance here. Yeah, that's going to be the only tanking ability here. So we're going to take Main Gouge. That's pretty huge. So when we use that, we now have a 15% chance to parry increase. And let's take a look at the legs. So legs, we're obviously going to take Blade Dance here because that plays into Just a Flesh Wound. A finishing move that increases your parry chance, lasts longer, and grants more parry chance per combo point. So we're going to take that, right? So you hit a 5-point Blade Dance. This is going to be... I think rogues are going to be really good just by reading this. They really are because 10% parry, 15% parry, 10% parry, so that's another 10%. That's 25% parry chance. You have a ton of dodge. I think rogues are actually going to be insane tanks, to be honest. Only thing I see being an issue here with rogue is that is that there's no cleave, right? We have no cleave on rogue, and I think that's what's going to keep them in A tier for me. if they had some sort of cleave, am I missing something here? Yeah, no cleave, right? And we're doing a raid here at level 25. Oh man, my throat was getting a little dry. And we're doing a raid, so you gotta remember there's gonna be a lot of trash, a lot of mobs that we're fighting. So without any cleave, unless I missed something, I'm not sure if I missed something. I don't think I did. But we don't have Blade Flurry yet. So for phase 1, I'm gonna have to put rogues in A tier. But I'm definitely gonna put them at the top of A tier. Because I think that they're gonna be very strong and competitive. I just don't, like, for boss, sure, single target, no problem. They're gonna hold threat with no issues. But for pulling packs of, 4 or 5 mobs, not really sure how they're gonna do there. Warriors are definitely gonna excel in that field. Yeah, I think this is accurate. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments below. But let's move on to Shaman. Okay, so for Shaman tanks, this is one that people have been playing for a long time, and now we actually have an official Shaman tank. So obviously we're going to be going into shield specialization, increase our chance to block attacks with a shield by 5%, and increase the amount blocked by 25%. And then we are going to most likely... Do we go into Thundering Strikes? Or do we go into Guardian Totems and improve Lightning Shields? Do we go Threat or Survivability? There's 2 ways you could play this, right? You can go into Thundering Strikes and then take points in Anticipation. How many points do we have left here? Boom. And then we can go into Flurry, right? 1 point in Flurry to get that. But let's play it safe. The build that most people probably will go if they're trying to just be pure tanking would be Guardian Totems, 3 points in Lightning Shield, 5 points in Anticipation to increase our dodge by another 5%. And then most likely you're going to go into 1 point into Toughness. So this would be like a pretty well-rounded tanking build for a level 25 Shaman in phase 1. And let's go check out our chest runes here. We have Dual Wield Specialization, Healing Rain, Overload, Shield Mastery. Of course, this is going to be the one we take. Each time you block, you regenerate mana equal to 4% of your maximum mana, and you gain armor equal to 30% of your shield's armor value, stacking up to 5 times. You also gain 10% increased chance to block and 15% increased block value. We have to go with Shield Mastery. And then here, we're most likely going to be going with Molten Blast. Blast enemies in a cone in front of you for 39 to 54 fire damage. This ability generated a high amount of threat. Flame Shock, periodic damage, has a 10% chance to reduce the cooldown on this. So this is your cleave, which is really nice. You have a nice frontal cleave. And then legs, we are going to be going with... Ooh, didn't think about this. While Rockbiter weapon is active on your main weapon, you deal 100% increased threat, gain 30% increased health, take 10% reduced damage, gain 6% reduced chance to be critically hit by melee attacks, and Earth Shock taunts the target to attack you and has a separate cooldown from other shock spells, but has its range reduced to melee. Obviously, Way of Earth. That's the only way we could play this out. So I think... So Shamans have it really good here. And they pretty much have everything. They have really good mitigation, really good block, really good dodge. They have the AoE cleave, and Way of Earth is just crazy. 100% increased threat gain, 30% increased health, 10% reduced damage taken, 6% reduced chance to be critically hit. I'm going to say safely that this would be the build that you run for a level 25, like Biss tanking Shaman. And I'm going to actually put Shamans in S tier right under Paladins. Simply because they have everything the Rogue has and more, right? They have everything Rogue has, but they also have Cleave, right, with Molten Blast. And I'm starting to think maybe Warriors don't deserve to be down here, because Warriors can now, they could Thunderclap in D-stance. So I don't know, though. They will be taking... They didn't get much to mitigate damage like other classes got. So I think they still belong in A tier. Top of A tier, right? Definitely top of A tier. And I'm going to actually put Rogues below Warlocks, just simply because Warlocks will have the Cleave and everything that Rogue has. Rogue is missing Cleave, and it makes me feel like we missed something, but I don't think we did. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments below. But yeah, I think that's it, guys. If you enjoyed this video, hit that like button. I'm going to do a tier list for DPS and for healers as well. We're going to do PvP and PvE tier lists for DPS and healers, so stay tuned for that. So yeah, like this video if you enjoyed it. Share it with a friend. Drop some comments down below, and if you have nothing to say at all, just drop an emoji. It really helps me out with the algorithm. And if you guys enjoyed this, and consider subscribing to the channel and turning on post notifications so you don't miss the next time I... And consider subscribing to the channel and turning on post notifications so you don't miss the next time I post a video. I'm going to be covering so much of Season of Discovery. We're going to be pumping videos out until it releases, and then even after it releases, we're going to pump videos out left and right. I've been waiting for this for a long time. And if you guys want to hang out with me live, I do stream on twitch.tv/hammerdance Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. I'll have a link to that in the description below this video. And if you want to join the awesome Discord community, feel free to join that as well and hang out with us. But anyways, guys, thank you all so much for watching and listening in. I'll see you all in the next one.